The moment I stepped through the entrance, I knew something was wrong. Not in a dramatic way. No shouting, no spilled champagne, no scene. Just a silence that didn't belong. No one looked at me. Not really. They looked past me. Through me. Around me. I wasn't late. I had flown across an ocean to be there. Suitcase still bearing the airport sticker. My gift, wrapped in monogrammed French linen, was clutched carefully in my hands. I was dressed for the occasion, polished, prepared, and smiling. But still something felt off. I walked in slowly, scanning the room. It was beautiful. Obnoxiously so. The type of elegance that felt more like performance than celebration. Every table glowed with candles and cream florals. Violinists played in the corner like they were paid not to blink. Waiters floated with trays. Crystal glasses clinked gently beneath soft conversations and tighter smiles. And then I saw it. The seating chart. It stood near the entrance like a wedding altar, calligraphy, gold trim, even wax seals on the place cards. My eyes moved across each row alphabetically. Guests from 5 different countries. Distant relatives. Yoga friends. Women Amanda had met once on a wine tour. I kept searching. My name wasn't there. Not under my married name. Not under my maiden name. Not misspelled. Not abbreviated. It was simply missing. I didn't panic. I didn't react. I just stood there blinking as Amanda's mother walked by in her lilac heels, sipping from a champagne flute. She noticed me looking at the chart. She didn't stop. She didn't apologize. She just sat calmly like commenting on the weather. Oh well. Stand if you must. Then came the laughter. I heard it ripple through the crowd like glass cracking under pressure. Not from strangers. From family. I smiled. Small. Tight. Not because it was funny but because I needed to keep my jaw from trembling. And in that exact moment I made a decision. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't ask for a chair. I'd give them their moment. But I'd take something back they weren't expecting. If this is your first time coming across one of our stories, welcome. Please hit the like button and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. And don't scroll away, because what happened next, no one saw coming. I met Amanda 2 years after Matt and I got married. She walked into our lives wearing confidence like perfume. Light but heavy enough to linger after she left the room. Her smile was perfect, her posture deliberate, and her words always just sweet enough to be accepted, but never warm enough to hold on to. To everyone else, she was delightful, polished, generous, quick with compliments that sounded rehearsed but convincing. She knew how to make people feel flattered in the moment and foolish in hindsight. From our very first meeting, I sensed it. She hugged me with one arm, looked me up and down, and said, "You're so natural." I love that Matt didn't marry someone who tries too hard. I laughed awkwardly, but the comment sat with me long after we said goodbye. She started small. Group messages would go out about family events, but somehow my number was always accidentally left out. I'd hear about brunches the next day from Matt, who had already known but assumed I'd passed. Photos would surface of family dinners where my place at the table had been replaced with a decorative centerpiece. Amanda would tag everyone but me. When I mentioned it, she'd say, "Oh, I thought Matt would have told you." Or, "It was just an impromptu thing. I figured you'd be busy." And then she'd flash that smile, the kind that shuts down confrontation before it starts. Matt, of course, didn't see it. To him, Amanda was his little sister, the baby of the family who used to fall asleep on his shoulder during road trips. "She doesn't mean anything by it," he'd say. "She just doesn't know you yet." But time passed, and knowing me didn't change her. She developed a strange closeness with Matt's mother, Lorraine. They'd have spa weekends, wine nights, even co-hosted a charity gala together. When I showed up at one of those events, uninvited but well-dressed and determined, I got a side hug from Lorraine and a comment from Amanda. "Oh wow, you made it. We were just talking about how tired you always are. Motherhood is no joke." I didn't say anything. I just smiled. Again. And stood at the edge of conversations I wasn't part of. At family dinners, I was often placed at the end of the table, near the children or next to someone who barely spoke English. Invites would come late, sometimes the night before. I once got a text from Amanda asking what I'd be wearing to the dinner. At 6 p.m. The dinner started at 6:30. I told Matt. Besides, said I was reading too much into things. You're letting this get in your head, he warned. And maybe I was. But it kept happening. So I started writing things down. Not out of paranoia, but out of survival. It was the only way I could trust myself when everyone else kept asking me to doubt what I saw. The turning point came when Amanda announced her pregnancy. She sent out a video. Professionally filmed. Music, captions, a voiceover narration. Everyone gushed. Everyone posted. I congratulated her privately. She replied with a thumbs up. Then came the gender reveal. A full event, hosted at a vineyard outside Napa. There were fireworks, flower walls, a drone to capture overhead shots. I found out the day after, when my coworker forwarded me an Instagram reel that had already reached 30,000 views. There was Lorraine, lighting the pink smoke cannon. There was Matt, holding Amanda's hand like he was the expectant father. There was everyone, cousins, colleagues, influencers, even Matt's ex-girlfriend from college, popping confetti and toasting champagne. Everyone but me. I showed Matt the video. He looked surprised, then said, "It was just a small thing for close friends." I stared at him. He didn't flinch. Not even a flicker of guilt. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Alone. Not just in the room, but in my own marriage. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just said, "You knew." He paused. Knew what? That I wasn't invited. His silence answered everything. Later that night, I opened the photos again. I zoomed in, frame by frame. They weren't hiding it anymore. Because they didn't think I mattered enough to notice. And that, I realized, was exactly the point. They wanted me to feel invisible. And I had. Until now. Because something shifted. Not in them. In me. I started wondering, was this more than just forgetfulness? Was it intentional? Calculated? Approved? And if so, what else had they decided I didn't deserve to know? I didn't have all the answers, but I knew one thing. This family had mistaken my silence for softness. And they were about to learn that even quiet women have limits. And I had just reached mine. When the baby shower invitations were announced, I already knew I wouldn't be on the original guest list. Amanda made a spectacle of it. Lavender envelopes, gold lettering, custom wax seals stamped with her unborn child's initials. She posted the moment her invitations were mailed like it was a press release. Mine arrived a week later than everyone else's. Unsealed. Bent at the corner. No handwritten note. Just a date, a time, and an address in Paris. No hope you can make it, just an expectation. Matt showed it to me like he was handing over a speeding ticket. He mumbled something about family obligations and showing support, but the way he avoided eye contact told me everything I needed to know. They wanted me there. Not to celebrate, but to observe. To be visible enough to mock, and silent enough to dismiss. I almost didn't go. I sat on the edge of our bed for hours, running my fingers over the envelope, wondering who I would be doing it for. But something inside me, the part they kept trying to erase, sat up that night and said go. Not to win them over. Not to play along. But to witness what they thought I couldn't handle. So I packed a dress I'd never worn, something elegant but bold. I bought a designer gift that cost more than our monthly groceries. A limited edition baby bassinet with Italian lace and gold trim. I didn't do it for Amanda. I did it because I wanted no one, absolutely no one, to say I hadn't done enough. The flight was long. The layover was miserable. But I landed in Paris with my chin lifted and my silence intact. A car picked me up from the airport and drove me through cobblestone streets lined with blooms, past landmarks that looked like paintings. But even the beauty of the city couldn't calm what I felt. Because deep down I knew. This wasn't an invitation. It was a setup. The venue was an old chateau-turned-event space, just outside the city. Wrought iron gates opened slowly as we arrived, revealing a courtyard filled with candles, flowers, and soft music spilling from tall French windows. Staff in black ties greeted guests by name, offering glasses of champagne and lavender macarons shaped like baby bottles. I stepped out of the car, adjusted my heels, and exhaled slowly. This was it. This was their stage. As I walked toward the entrance, I could already feel the stares. Not curious. Not friendly. Measured. Intentional. Amanda's friends, lined in soft pastels like bridesmaids, paused their conversation to look at me. No one smiled. No one moved. It was as if I'd arrived in the wrong scene of a movie they were already filming. I entered the grand hall, gift in hand. The walls were draped in silk. Tables glowed under chandeliers. Each place setting had hand-calligraphed menus and individual floral arrangements. The air smelled like gardenias and old money. It was perfect. Too perfect. The kind of perfect that dares you to find a flaw. And I did. The seating chart stood just to the left of the door, surrounded by flickering candles, mounted on an easel, framed in gold. I stepped closer. Names were listed in delicate script, arranged by table. I scanned them slowly, carefully. Once. Twice. Then again. I was nowhere to be found. Not under M. Not under my maiden name. Not next to Matt's. I wasn't there. I wasn't listed. At all. I stood motionless. Amanda's mother approached with her usual air of restrained superiority, holding a flute of champagne like a scepter. She glanced at me, followed my eyes to the chart, and without missing a beat, smiled and said, "Oh well. Stand if you must," then walked away. Laughter followed. Soft at first. Then fuller. Louder. Amanda, standing with a group of her friends, caught my eye and gave a dramatic shrug. "Guess we miscounted," she said like it was a punchline. The group burst out laughing. One of them even clapped. I didn't speak. Didn't blink. Didn't show them the gift in my hand. Didn't mention the 9-hour flight. Didn't ask for a chair. I nodded slowly, turned around, and walked outside. The wind was cool. The sky was soft gray. I stood at the edge of the courtyard, away from the noise, and pulled out my phone. Dialed one number. Spoke one sentence. Confirmed one change. Then I hung up. No emotion in my voice. No anger in my face. Because what I had just done required none. I placed the gift gently on a bench, straightened my dress, and walked away. No confrontation. No goodbye. No dramatics. Just a quiet exit. Back at the hotel, I removed my makeup slowly. My hands trembled, not from sadness, but clarity. I had always hoped for healing. But healing requires a wound that wants to close. And this family, they only knew how to press deeper. So I stopped bleeding for them, and began thinking clearly. By the time they finished their speeches, their toasts, their rehearsed moments of false inclusion, the venue would be locked. The tables would be bare. The kitchen would be empty. And waiting for them would be a note. Because I wasn't their forgotten guest. I was the woman they didn't see coming. And they were about to understand what that meant. Back in my hotel room, I couldn't sleep. The silence was thick. Not peaceful, just heavy. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every smirk, every side eye, every moment I'd swallowed for the sake of keeping the peace. And for what? To be tolerated? To be dressed up and dismissed like background music at their parade? My phone buzzed just after midnight. A message from an old acquaintance. Someone who used to be close to Amanda before she traded real friends for curated ones. There were no pleasantries, no lead-up. Just a screenshot. It was a message thread between Amanda and Lorraine. Amanda had sent a photo of me from a previous family dinner, the one where I'd been seated next to a toddler with spaghetti in his hair. Below it she'd written, "Can we please talk to Matt about keeping her away from the shower? This isn't a church picnic." Lorraine responded, "Agreed. She's not one of us. Never was." I stared at those words for a long time. Not because they surprised me, but because they confirmed what I had always suspected. This wasn't pettiness. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was targeted, calculated, and worse, accepted. I began pulling at the threads, one after the other. Quietly. No one knew I was looking. I didn't tell Matt. I didn't confide in anyone. I just started collecting. Bank records. Email trails. Photos. WhatsApp conversations forwarded from a cousin who had her own reasons for not trusting Amanda anymore. Screenshots that showed Amanda's name scribbled into spaces she didn't belong. Trust accounts, inheritance arrangements, vacation homes. And in those same files I found something else. Something uglier. Amanda had, more than once, advised Lorraine to change the beneficiaries of a family trust. She claimed I was unstable. That I was pulling Matt away from the family. That if something ever happened to him, I would empty the estate and disappear. None of it was true. But Amanda knew something about lies. If you say them gently enough and often enough, people stop checking the facts. They just nod. There was a particular message that sat with me the longest. Amanda had written, "Don't worry. Once the baby is born, she'll fade out. Matt listens to me now." That line played over and over in my head, like a siren buried under my skin. I waited until I got home before confronting Matt. Not in anger. Not even with emotion. I needed him to be calm. I needed him to show me who he really was without knowing I was watching. I chose a Sunday. We were sitting in the kitchen. He was scrolling through his phone, reading headlines aloud like everything was fine. I looked at him and asked plainly, "Did you know I wasn't on the seating chart?" He paused, didn't meet my eyes, swallowed, then said, "Amanda thought it would be simpler that way." That sentence, so casual, so practiced, so revealing. I asked, "And you said nothing?" He shrugged like it was out of his hands. I didn't want to make things awkward. It was her event. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because my heart couldn't decide whether to break or harden. That's when I realized, it wasn't just Amanda. It wasn't just Lorraine. They had help. They had permission. They had silence. And Matt gave them all three. For years I told myself he didn't see it. That he was caught in the middle. That family ties blurred his judgment. But he had seen it. He had chosen not to care. And in that moment I saw the full picture. They never wanted me in the family. I was tolerated. Barely, like wallpaper. Quiet, forgettable, expected to stay in place. But I had moved. And they hadn't accounted for that. I need you to breathe. I wasn't ready for that twist either. If your heart just dropped, tap the like button. It tells me I'm not the only one who felt it. And don't keep this story to yourself. Share it with someone who loves real-life drama as much as you do, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. I woke up the next morning with an unfamiliar feeling in my chest. Not pain. Not sadness. Not even rage. Just clarity. Sharp. Still. Like ice water running through my veins. It was no longer about Amanda. Or Lorraine. Or even Matt. This was about me. Choosing not to let them write me out of my own life like a side character. Matt's uncle, Charles, owned the chateau they were using for the baby shower. When Amanda insisted on a picturesque French estate, Charles had generously offered it up as a gift to Matt and me on paper. It was still under my name for the duration of the event. Amanda didn't know that. None of them did. They just assumed, like always, that I wouldn't dare rock the boat. So I did. Quietly. Methodically. The first call I made was to the venue manager. I explained that the primary signatory had decided to cancel the event. He paused. Asked no questions. Just confirmed the change. The second call went to the caterers. 5-course gourmet meals, imported cheeses, delicately sourced seafood. Gone. Then the decorators. White florals, silk linens, €1,000 centerpieces. Cancelled. Photographers, violinists, guest transportation. One by one, I dismantled the day they had so proudly posted about for weeks. The same day they tried to erase me from. I drafted a note. Short. Unapologetic. Since you didn't count me in, I decided to count myself out. Enjoy your afternoon. Alone. I signed it. Folded it neatly, and left it with the concierge, with strict instructions to hand it to Amanda upon arrival. Then I packed my things. I didn't linger. I didn't look back. I was on a train to Marseille before Amanda even finished her breakfast croissant. I imagined them showing up in their pastel dresses, curated to match the floral arrangements that no longer existed. I pictured Amanda's smug smile stiffening the moment she saw the locked gates. The silence inside the chateau. No music. No lighting. Just wind and the sound of heels scraping the gravel as guests whispered and turned around. I imagined Lorraine pulling out her phone to make a call. Matt pacing. Amanda screaming. The baby shower hashtags hanging awkwardly in the air as influencers stood by their rented luxury cars, debating whether to wait or flee. And then, the note. Handed to Amanda with the reverence of a legal document. She'd open it. Scan it. Smile faltering. Hands shaking. Lip twitching. Because in one simple line, I'd done something none of them expected. I refused to beg for a seat at a table that was never meant for me. My phone lit up with calls before I even reached the next city. First Lorraine, then Amanda, then Matt. Over and over. Voicemails, texts, messages laced with threats disguised as confusion. Why would you do this? You've humiliated us. This is so childish. Childish. They had built an entire event on my erasure and expected me to clap for them from the sidelines. No, not this time. I didn't answer a single one. I blocked them all. Not in anger. Not in haste. Just finally. There was no screaming match. I let the silence answer everything they never cared enough to ask. But I wasn't done yet. I didn't return to Paris. I didn't need to. The damage had been done, and this time it wasn't mine to carry. When I got home, I did something I should have done years ago. I called a lawyer. And then I called another. Within the week, I'd filed for divorce. There was no dramatic confrontation. No begging. Matt didn't even try. He showed up to our mediation looking pale and stunned. Like someone had finally. You see, when Matt started that little boutique consultancy firm, the one he bragged about to his friends and family, he didn't have the funds. I did. I'd inherited some money from my late father. Nothing huge, but enough to plant the seeds of his so-called empire. I wrote the check. I sat through the late nights. I balanced the books. I made it work. And when we stood in front of that judge, I came with receipts. Literally. Invoices. Transfers. Emails. Proof that while he played house with his sister and mother, I was the one making sure it didn't burn down. The judge took one look at our financials and granted me not just a clean split, but a settlement that returned every penny I had invested, and then some. Matt's face. He didn't even argue. He couldn't. He'd gotten so used to me staying quiet, he forgot I'd learned to keep records. The final decree arrived 2 weeks later. Signed. Stamped. Freedom notarized. Meanwhile, Amanda was unraveling. Apparently, someone had leaked footage of the Paris baby shower disaster. Guests outside the venue, muttering into their phones. Amanda wailing in her overpriced gown. Lorraine yelling at staff in broken French. And that note. The camera caught her reading it. Someone zoomed in. It went viral. Influencers mocked it. Event planners shared it as a cautionary tale. Amanda became the punchline of the very world she tried to impress. The girl who hosted a ghost party in Paris. Worse still, the family began to whisper. Not about me, but about her. About how she always stirred tension. About how she pushed me out. Suddenly, I wasn't the problem. I was the mirror. And they didn't like what they saw. Matt's business, too, began to slip. Without me handling operations, invoices went unpaid. Clients complained. Contracts fell through. Within 6 months, he'd quietly closed 2 branches. I watched it all unfold from my sunlit apartment across town. Peaceful. Undisturbed. Unbothered. I got a letter from Lorraine at one point. Just a clumsy attempt to reconnect. I didn't even open it. I slid it into the shredder and watched it disappear. Because closure doesn't come from them. It comes from choosing yourself. And that was how I took back my power without raising my voice. Just quiet decisions that echoed louder than any insult they ever whispered behind my back. I didn't need revenge. I just needed clarity. And now? I have it. If this ending gave you chills or left you speechless, hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Because my next story might just be even wilder. And please drop a comment below. I read every single one. I used to think silence was submission. That holding back my words meant I was weak, or scared, or unsure. But I've learned something. Silence, when chosen, when sharpened and timed and aimed, isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's survival. It's power. I didn't scream at Amanda in that hotel lobby. I didn't throw wine or raise my voice or plead for my place at a table built to exclude me. Instead, I calmly removed the table altogether. I didn't argue with Matt when I found the texts. Didn't cry when he admitted he knew and did nothing. Didn't try to change his mind. I changed my future. Every betrayal they handed me, I folded into fuel. Every slight, every whisper, every laugh at my expense. I stored it. Quietly. Until the time came to open my hand and let them see what I'd been building. And the truth is, I never wanted revenge. Not in the petty sense. Not in the fire for fire sense. What I wanted was peace. And I found it when I realized I didn't need their acceptance to be whole. Amanda will live with the echo of that locked gate in Paris. She'll remember the empty courtyard, the missing guests, the silence where applause should have been. That moment taught her something louder than any confrontation ever could, that the one she tried to erase was the one who held the pen. Matt will live with the knowledge that the foundation beneath his business wasn't his own ambition, but my faith in him. A faith he fractured beyond repair. And me? I no longer wake up bracing for rejection. I no longer shrink myself to fit into rooms I was never meant to be in. I walk taller now, not because I won, but because I let go. Of needing to prove, of trying to belong, of carrying the weight of their judgment. I learned that dignity doesn't mean silence forever. It means choosing your moments. It means knowing when to speak and when to walk away. And sometimes walking away is the loudest thing you can do. So if you're in the middle of a storm, if someone's pushing you out with a smile, if you're being laughed at in rooms where your name should be respected, take note, breathe, plan, and remember, revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the hush before the collapse. Sometimes it's the click of a lock on a gate that was never theirs to walk through. Sometimes it's you, finally choosing you. And when you do, the silence won't feel like defeat. It'll feel like freedom.